Welcome to another episode of Let's Eat Fiction. I'm your host, Remy. Now, after many of your requests that we go back to our roots and make a Disney recipe, I did promise that on today's episode we would be making a recipe from the Disney Pixar film Ratatouille. But I also said we would not be making Ratatouille. Well, not this time anyway. So we're making the soup you see at the beginning of the film. Now, this is the soup that Linguini almost spills and he ruins by throwing a whole bunch of stuff in it and tap water. So then Remy has to step in and tweak it and fix it and add all of his ingredients. And then the soup turns out wonderful. The critic loves it. The head chef loves it. This is kind of what brings Remy and Linguini together and sort of catapults the whole movie forward. Now, there's nowhere to find this recipe, and Remy certainly doesn't describe what he's putting in as he's doing it. So I had to do extensive research to figure it out. And by extensive research, I mean watching the movie like this. Pause, 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 pause. What's that? Bay leaves. Okay, write it down. Play. Pause, 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 pause. What's that? Cream. Okay, write it down. So I had to do that over and over again with the help of Matt and Drew, kind of, watching with me, being my extra pairs of eyes, so we could figure it out. So then once we figured that out, then it was a matter of quantities, how much of this, how much of that. And then of course I had to simplify it all because, that's what we're all about, making recipes simple and easy. So you'll be happy to know that everything is done in one pot, it's all in there. So simple, so easy. I hope you guys love it. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's eat fiction. For this recipe, you're going to need a large pot. And as you can see, we've started off with 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. So we're going to melt this butter on medium-high heat. So once our butter is nice and melted, we're going to add in 1 yellow onion that's been finely chopped. This was a large yellow onion. So we're just going to saute the onions until they become tender and almost translucent. Alright, now you can see that our onions are already very tender and they're starting to become translucent. Now at this point we're going to add in our leeks. Now if you've never seen a leek before, they look like this. They're on this long stalk. You can see they have these flat leaves here. You're going to cut off 2 of these leaves and then chop them up so they look like this. So let's add in our 2 leeks. And then we're also going to add in 4 cloves of garlic that have been minced. And now we're going to stir those in and continue to cook them until the onions are completely translucent and the leeks are tender. Okay, now that our onions are completely translucent, now we're going to add in our tomatoes. So I just started off with your basic 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes. Then I dumped them into my blender and then I just pureed them till I have this thick liquid consistency. We're going to add in the whole can and let's stir that around. So this is making our tomato base that we're going to work off of. To that we're going to add 1 tablespoon of just your basic table sugar and some cracked black pepper. And you'll want to be generous with that. Alright, next we're going to add in some white wine. So I just have this basic white cooking wine. We're going to add in 1 cup. Now if you don't want to add in the wine, you can simply substitute for 1 cup of plain water. Right now we're going to raise our heat and bring that to a boil because we want to cook off the alcohol. You'll know that it's been burned off when it's really thick, whereas before it had a watery consistency. And then also when you smell the steam, you won't get that strong whiff of alcohol. Alright, so let's reduce our heat to low now. And now we're going to add in our chicken broth. So we're going to add in 5 cups of your basic chicken broth. Next, we're going to add in some cubed Parmesan cheese. Now, I know a lot of people think that Remy used diced potatoes, but I watched that scene over and over again, and the very first time he goes to add some ingredients, he goes up to a bowl of diced potatoes, and you can tell they're potatoes because at the bottom of the screen you can see some unpeeled, uncut potatoes. He sniffs them, and then he moves on as if to say, you know, that's not what I'm looking for. But then you do see in some other scenes right around that time, there's some, it looks like some cheese that has been cubed. And then later we see him throwing some cubes in there. So I'm assuming that those are blocks of cheese. So I just have some Parmesan that I bought in a wedge. It looks like this. You can usually find it near your deli area or your cheeses. And then I cubed 1/3 cup of it. You can add whatever cheese you like. I'm just thinking that Parmesan would be the best fit for this soup with the tomatoes. So we're going to add those in. And then now we're going to add in all of our seasonings. So we're going to start off with thyme. So I just purchased thyme. It comes in a container like this. It's about $1.99. You get quite a bit of it. So you'll take your sprig of it, and then if you take your 2 fingers and you can just slide them all off or chop it finely. So we're going to add 1 tablespoon of thyme. I did have dried thyme that I could have used, but you know, this recipe is also an experience because, you know, the whole movie Ratatouille is about, you know, the fragrance and the preparation of food. So I thought what better way than to make this not just a recipe but also an experience. So, you know, the idea of chopping the herbs and smelling them as they're cooking, it just adds to the whole experience. So for this recipe, you definitely want to use fresh herbs. And you can find them really inexpensively at your local grocery store or Walmart or whatever. But if you can't find them, you're welcome to use the dried. But this is just going to be so much more flavorful by using the fresh. Alright, next we're going to add our basil. So same thing, basil comes a little package like this. You can find it in your produce section. It looks like this, these leaves. And then you just finely chop those up with a sharp knife. So we're using 1 tablespoon of basil. And then 4 bay leaves. So these as well, you can use them fresh or dried. I had dried, but for this recipe I'm using fresh. So we're going to add 4 of those in. Those are really inexpensive as well. I got that package for 99 cents. Now, in the movie, they describe the soup as spicy yet subtle, and I was trying to figure out what would make it spicy. So I kept watching it, and then there's another scene later where Remy is teaching Linguini how to cook blindfolded, and they're making the soup again. And then I see a container. I was like, wait, pause it. Let's see what that is. Is that cayenne? So we paused it, and sure enough, it was cayenne pepper. So we're going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Now, if you like it spicier, you're welcome to add more. But since they described it as spicy yet subtle, we're only going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon. Now we're going to add some sea salt. You can just find this near your spices. There's another scene where Linguini is messing up the soup, and you see him pour in some tap water, and then he puts in an entire bunch of green onions. I'm going to leave them out because at that point when Remy sees him, he says he's, you know, ruining the soup. So I don't want to do that, and plus I'm not a fan of green onions, so I'm going to leave those out. But I am going to just chop some of the chives so that if anyone wants to garnish their soup with it, they're welcome to. So the green onions are optional. So we've reduced our heat to low. Now we're just going to cover it and let it simmer for 20 minutes before adding our cream and a few other ingredients. Alright, so after our soup's been simmering on low for 20 minutes, we're going to add in our heavy cream. So we're going to add in 1 pint or 2 cups. This is what makes it tomato bisque, and it gives it that really nice light color. Because if you remember at the beginning of the movie, when Linguini almost spills it, it's dark red, which lets you know that it's tomato. But then later we see Remy add in cream, and then by the end of that scene, when they serve it, it's this light pink color. Right now, let's add in our parsley. So this is just half a cup of chopped parsley. Right now, let's recover it and then let it simmer on low for another 10 minutes. And then we'll serve it up. As you can see, we've ladled our soup into a bowl, and it's got this nice pinkish color to it. And there's our herbs and vegetables inside. And we've served it with a sliced baguette fresh from the bakery. And then here's our chives for garnishing. Now guys, I so wish you could smell my kitchen right now. It smells so good. Those fresh herbs, I highly recommend splurging on those fresh herbs. It makes such a huge difference. Now, you know how I told you that I try to always do like a practice run through the recipe beforehand? But this week we were really busy, so I didn't get to do that. So what I made on air today was my first time making it. Now let me just say, I make lots of soups and stews through like the fall and the winter. And always, it never fails, when I take that first, samples taste with a spoon, it always needs like salt or pepper, more seasoning, something that's usually really bland. And that happens a lot with soups because, they're water-based, so a lot of times your seasonings just get so diluted that it's really bland. But today's soup, that first taste test I took, I thought, let me check it because I know it's going to need something. It needed absolutely nothing. Not a dash of this or a splash of that. It was perfect from the get-go. And that has never happened on any soup or stew recipe I've ever made. So that rat knew exactly what he was doing in that kitchen. So I really hope you guys check out the recipe. It is on our website, let'seatfiction.com. To keep up with us on our daily activities, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, and now we're posting the recipes on Pinterest as well. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be updated on future episodes. We post recipe videos every Friday, and be sure to stop by every Mailapalooza Monday where we read viewers' emails and chat it up a bit. So thanks again for watching today's show. Thanks for liking and commenting on this video. This is Red Raina reminding you to feed your imagination, and I'll see you next time on Let's Eat Fiction. Bye-bye.